About how if you asked me how I was doing again, I was going to say about
Brian Haenchen, Chloe Peterson here with you, Indianapolis Star. It's WNBA All-Star Weekend is finally upon us, and we are here. We just finished up with media availability. It's shoot-around festivities ahead of tonight's skills competition. Chloe, I know that you have been traveling. You went to, Boston to New York, back to Indy, then right to some events. How are you doing?
well, this is the first day in 4 days that I haven't had to take a morning flight, so that's a win for me.
It's good. I'm glad. That's much better than the first three times we recorded this, and Chloe just said good. So we are progressing. We're both, the vibes are incredible. The energy is great. Chloe, let's jump right into the big topic of the weekend, obviously, and that is Caitlin Clark. A new groin injury, correct?
Yes.
A new groin injury. I'll let you just talk the people through what she's going through, and then obviously it's going to prevent her, from participating in the weekend festivities.
Yeah, so she got a new right groin injury on Tuesday night when the Fever were playing the Sun in Boston, and it obviously we don't know specifically when it happened because she could have started feeling something during the game, but when she started having visible discomfort was with about 30 seconds left in the game. She had a bounce pass to Kelsey Mitchell where she kind of twisted her hips a little bit, and then when she turned out of that and went to the next play, she grabbed on her upper thigh groin area, and she looked very emotional during that time and like about the last 30 seconds of the game. So she went to hit her head on the stanchion and then walked to the bench, and she was visibly emotional when that happened. And then after that, she got some imaging, she got an MRI, and that was what ruled her out for Wednesday's game the next day against New York. So I'm not entirely sure what that means because Coach Steph White said she is still day-to-day, and she thought that the MRI was good news. But obviously when it comes to this weekend, Caitlin announced on Thursday that she was going to pull out of the three-point contest and the All-Star game itself because she needs to rest. And this is her fourth separate muscle injury this season. She had some quad tightness in the preseason where she missed a preseason game, and then she strained her left quad and she missed 2 weeks. And then about a week after returning from that left quad strain, she had a left groin injury where she missed another 2 weeks. And then she came back for a week from that left groin injury, and now she has this right groin injury. So it's been a lot of bad luck for her this season so far.
Dana wrote a story on IndyStar.com, by the way, where she talked to a doctor about the injury and just the re-injuring versus a new injury, what's better, what's worse. So I encourage people to check that out as well. Just what's your read on the situation, just in terms of outlook? Obviously, people want to know, when is she going to be back? What is the timetable? Based on what you've heard, your intuition, what do you think the outlook is on that front?
Yeah, they haven't said much about how long she's going to be out or when she's going to return. Basically the same thing. But Steph obviously said she's day to day as of now, but she also said she's day to day with the left groin injury, and that ended up being about a 2-week period. But at this point, it's kind of she's had 4 different muscle injuries this season, so they might want to hold her out for a little bit longer than 2 weeks. Really make sure that she's going to be healthy and she's not going to keep injuring, whether it's re-aggravating one of her injuries or suffering another different muscle injury. So I wouldn't be surprised if she is out for a little bit longer compared to the last injury she's had.
Was it Lisa Leslie who was on there talking about how that never really went away for her?
Yeah.
It just kind of becomes about pain management.
Yeah, according to Lisa Leslie, who talked on a show a few days ago, these kind of muscle injuries can just linger for a long time. Like, obviously you can still play and still play very effectively, but it turns into learning how to play with that injury or with that discomfort.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And I guess on the encouraging side, and maybe just makes it a little easier, I guess, to hold her out, is the team looked good in stretches. Yes. When she was out this most recent time. Like, they figured out how to make things work. It's a group that's very, as they'll talk about a lot, well-versed in overcoming adversity and fighting through some of these moving pieces. So it's not like they're starting from scratch like it was previously. So that eases a little bit, I guess, of the edge on it.
Yeah, they did have that good stretch when she was out with the left groin injury where they won 3 in a row, including the Commissioner's Cup. beat the Aces for the first time since 2019. So like they've had good stretches without her, but they play. I mean, Sophie Cunningham has talked a lot about how they look like a different team with Clark and without Clark. So it's kind of switching in between those seems a little bit difficult for them, but they can get in the stride either way with or without her.
And some certainty too will probably help, where this is going to be lined up. This is the situation we're dealing with for the weeks, so it gives them a chance, like you said, to your point, to settle in and get going. Anything else that you wanted to add on the Clark front before we pivot to a tangentially related Caitlin Clark thing?
Good.
Lexie Hull picked to replace Caitlin Clark. That was something we found out this morning as both you and I were getting ready to walk out the door, which is always a fun and exciting announcement. But Lexie Hull, a fun and exciting addition for the 3-point contest.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. Obviously Lexie's had a pretty good year this year. And it'll be interesting to see her, go along with Sabrina Ionescu, Sonia Citron, Kelsey Plum, and someone else that I can't remember right now.
That'll be who wins the contest, by the way.
Oh wait, it's Alicia Gray. I remembered. She's the reigning champ.
There you go.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
It's going to be pasted all over the walls now. They're going to play in the locker room. But no, it'll be exciting, and it's fun too. Obviously, the hometown representation, have them in there.
Yeah, I know Kelsey Mitchell mentioned in her media earlier today that she was glad that Caitlin got to be involved in that process of picking who it was, and
did she really?
It seems like she was the one to kind of encourage them to pick Lexie. So it's good that obviously they're going to have some Fever representation in their home 3-point challenge. But it's funny because I was wondering if it was going to be Kelsey Mitchell, because she filled in for Erica Wheeler last year in the skills challenge in Phoenix when Erica couldn't get there for the because of flight delays. So I was wondering if that'd be a second straight year of last minute fill-ins.
That's cool though. You get back to have the two Fever players, and that's something too that we should mention with Caitlin Clark, is that I think you told me about it, and I saw it in some other quotes too, that she's still very much involved. Like you kind of see like she's taking on that other role, and I think she even said during Good Morning America, she said that this is kind of taking the sting off of the situation that she's in, just being around and seeing everybody and the continued support. So it's cool to see how she stayed involved in a variety of different ways, and she'll obviously have a big presence here this weekend.
Yeah.
The last thing is we round into minute 7:25. Chloe didn't think we'd go 5 minutes, but here we are still yapping. The big thing that everybody's talking about, I think the biggest storyline coming into the weekend, CBA.
Yes.
They met on Thursday. It sounds like very well participated. I think 30 to 40.
Yeah, 40 players went.
Yeah, players were missing paid sponsored appearances to be involved. Young players are involved. Everybody that you talk to said, who've been around the league for a while, say this is the most participation I've ever seen, the most engagement. That sets the table now for you and just how things went.
Yeah, I mean, the Players Union has been talking ever since they opted out of the CBA last November that they want this to be a transformational change. And they're looking for that transformational change mostly in their salaries and their revenue sharing. Because right now, the WNBA's revenue sharing model is not really that good. So in the WNBA, players only get revenue sharing if first the league hits its revenue sharing target, which I don't know what that is. I'm not sure if many people do know what it is. But after they hit that revenue sharing target, then players get 25% of the additional revenue, and 25% goes into this pool that the WNBA will use to pay players for marketing agreements that they do for the league. And that's a big contrast to the NBA, which has a 50-50 revenue sharing split. So I think that's what Nafisa Collier, who's a WNBPA vice president, Minnesota Lynx forward, that was one of the things she talked about being the biggest point for the union and really the biggest point of contention, which makes sense because it's all about money. The money is going to be the contentious part of it. And their other big point is salaries, which right now the super maximum for players is $250,000, and that you can only get that if you're cored, and teams can only core one player a year, and half the time they don't core a player, and you're only eligible to be cored for 2 years, and if you're an outgoing unrestricted free agent, so there's a lot of hoops to jump through to be able to get the super maximum of $250K, and then the regular maximum is about 216. So there's a significant disparity in that, and the fact that the super maximum is 250K is not that great either. So that's kind of what they're looking for in the transformational change, and that's why, all but 2 veteran players have not signed past 2025. So most veteran players are anticipating this transformational change in salaries, so they are all becoming free agents in a way or form after the 2025 season. And that's just something they're going to have to figure out before, obviously, the 2026 season tips off. And there was talk of a lockout in some way. The players made it clear today, like Nafisa Collier and Nneka Ogwumike, who is the union president, they made it clear that they don't want that to happen, but they are prepared for it to happen because they seem to be pretty far apart on their 2 biggest points of revenue sharing and salaries.
It's always tough to tell how much of it is posturing on either side. Obviously, these things get tricky, and a lot of it plays out in the media. But what does your gut say? Do you think a new CBA is struck before 2026, or do you think that this prolongs and we end up with a lockout, teams missing games?
I feel like before the season, the 2026 season starts in May or whenever it starts next year, there will be a new CBA, but I think it will probably impact, the off season, because if the current collective bargaining agreement expires on October 31st, and I'm not entirely sure how that changes things, because the WNBA is supposed to have a double expansion draft with Toronto and Portland coming into the league next year, and that's typically in December. But if they don't have a agreed to collective bargaining agreement that would set the tone for how expansion drafts work, they likely will not have the expansion draft. And then in January, that's usually when free agency starts, when teams are able to start coring players and negotiate with the restricted free agents. If they don't have a CBA by then, they're not going to be able to core players or work with their free agents or just negotiate anyway. So I think that will it'll run up to that point, I think, and then some things will start getting disrupted, and that will make either the league or the players union or both get it in gear.
It's going to be really fun off season for you, and I'm really excited that you're the one who gets to handle that. I'll do shoot around tomorrow. You get the off season and the influx. Any final thoughts, any predictions, picks for tonight? I know that you're big on the predictions, seeing as you can name everybody in the 3-point contest.
I feel like I have to go with Erica Wheeler for the skills challenge, just because she missed it last year. We don't like the crowd strike outage, whatever that was last year with the Plains. But anyway, I'm going with Erica Wheeler.
What is involved in the skills competition? I only know the 3-point thing.
There's you throw the ball through a circular thing, and then you do a layup. I'm not entirely sure. I kind of forgot. So
come follow along as Chloe tweets about throwing a ball through a circular thing and then does the other thing to end it. She's not entirely sure. Thank you all
I do a 3-pointer, I think.
Yeah, 3-pointer too. Yeah. Yeah, maybe like a game of charades or something. I don't know.
Something I think is dumb about the skills challenge is
we're not going to go 5 minutes. We're going to struggle to get 5 done.
You have 3 chances to make a layup or the 3-pointer. And if you miss all 3 of them, you just get to move on. And you don't get any time penalty. I feel
really?
Yeah, if you don't make them, I feel like you should get a penalty. Because people can just chuck it up, like Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul did at the NBA All-Star game last year. They did get disqualified, but they were very obvious about it. But if you don't make them, you just move on. And I'm like, you should get a 5-second penalty or something if you don't make the shots.
We need to do these more often because Chloe has hot takes like this about the skills competition.
That is my take on the WNBA skills competition.
Come back tomorrow when she rips on the 4-point thing where the money's getting sent to charity. She's the most outraged about that thing, folks. But thank you all so much for watching. Good job making it 14 minutes. Again, a thing that we thought would go 2 minutes if we were lucky. We might be back tomorrow. We might not. Either way, read everything that Chloe has on IndyStar.com. She does a great job. She's going to have a ton of content, more content than you can shake a stick at. I'll have something, a single story, one story compared to Chloe's dozen or so on the 2 Indiana natives who are back here, Jackie Young and Skylar Diggins. Chloe's got something on the CBA. She'll have stuff from the commissioner who's speaking tomorrow, which should be a lot of fireworks. Anything else before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
That's all, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll talk to you again soon. End recording. And